Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health podcast. And in today's episode, Téa and I want to talk about some of the big points that have come up over the past several conversations that we've had through this series on life, death, and beyond, exploring our greater reality. There's been a few big things that keep coming up over and over again, and we thought it would be really important to talk about them a little bit and practically what are the ways that we can start to incorporate some of those strategies so that we can connect to what all of these guests are talking about without necessarily having a near-death experience in order to do it. So I would say the points that keep coming up over and over again are that we are much more than we think we are. And that's not necessarily a new concept, but it's been validated by these people that have had these near-death experiences and outer body experiences. I think the difference is that they have had an actual tangible experience of knowing that without question, where a lot of times when we hear it, we maybe make sense to us and we like the idea of it, but maybe we don't, we haven't,
believe it.
yeah, we don't totally believe it because we haven't had that tangible experience. And so everything we do on this platform is really trying to bring awareness to things and then create experiences so that we can have our own experience and tangibly know it. That's really when
Gnosis.
yeah, that's gnosis. That's when we really know it ourselves. And that's ultimately what then is going to change and transform our lives in a different direction. So first thing is that we are much more than we think we are. We are not just this physical body. There is a lot more to us. And this idea that we are so much more expansive than we think we are. And then the other thing that comes up over and over again is how to access it. So basically have a near-death experience or an outer body experience or a major spiritual awakening. And outside of that,
In Guy Lawrence's recent episode, he spoke of this heart expansion that he experienced during a meditation. I know I've had one of those in the past before, and you have as well. So when we do have experiences, even within meditation or plant medicine ceremony or whatever it is that kind of catapults us out of this idea that we're just this physical body, has the potential oftentimes to really bring us to a place of there's more than just this physicality.
and I think the process to that can be different for every individual as far as how you access it. But what has come up over and over again with pretty much every guest we've talked about is outside of having a near-death experience or a spiritual awakening, it usually ties back to connecting back to that inner stillness, that quiet that comes with being in nature or with meditation. And so we want to tie those concepts in a little bit and some of the things that we do and some different ways to help access this experience.
And I think it's probably no accident that at this time in humanity's history, I feel like we've been challenged by the external world around us. And so many of the people that we've spoken to, I don't know, most of the time in private, even before we started recording the episodes, is that we're essentially being called to really leave behind or pay less attention and focus less on the world around us and turn more inward. And it's really in that space that we're able to connect to something that is not only tangible within the quietude of our own intimate moments with all that is, or that source connection, or that heart intelligence. There's different terminologies depending on who it is that we're listening to or hearing this from, but it's essentially within the quarantine or the cocoon and turning inward that we're able to really find that inner intelligence.
And this has been talked about by lots of different sages and enlightened people over the years too. And I've been recently reading a book called How to Know Higher Worlds by Rudolf Steiner. Highly recommend it. It's got tons of great information. And one of the things that he says here too, that when I was going through these episodes and then reading this book at night. And here he says, to achieve this, talking about this sort of experience, to achieve this, the student learns to give himself up less and less to impressions of the outer world and to develop instead a vivid inner life. A person who darts from one impression of the outer world to another, who constantly seeks distraction, cannot find the way to higher knowledge. Only what we experience within ourselves unlocks for us the beauties of the outer world. And also talks many times about the importance of actually creating time within our lives where we literally step out away, completely away from our working life and all of the stuff that we normally do within this world, to be able to dedicate specific pieces of time to that inner landscape, to be able to actually sit and be still. And this is something that we've really been incorporating for a while now, but very much where we really do find time to just sit and do nothing, just be still. And sometimes you might think when you start to be still, sometimes it sounds like as loud as possible. Like I know Téa's talked before about when she's done Vipassana meditations for long periods of time. Sometimes initially that can be super loud when the mind's going. How do you start to navigate that stillness? When you start to stay in stillness, how are you able to actually kind of reap the rewards from it? Because sometimes it actually feels like chaos when you first start to try to be still.
I think we've talked about this in lots of past conversations as well, is that, one of the strategies actually that RJ Spina has spoken about recently that I really liked the imagery and the feel of is, imagine that when these thoughts come in, they're in the form of bubbles and you just pop, pop, pop. You don't have to identify them. You don't have to get caught up in them. As soon as you recognize that there's a thought, just pop it. Pop the bubble. Mm-hmm. I like that. But it's really the practice of non-attachment. It's really not identifying, not holding on to, not creating stories around, not really being entertained at all, not harping on it, not getting down on yourself because it's coming up. Just know that this is the nature of thoughts incessantly coming in and moving through, and just as soon as you notice it, just pop that bubble.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, the process I think is a lot simpler than we think it's got to be. And to me, a big part of it is just showing up. It's actually just making the commitment that you want to explore that inner landscape more, and that you're going to show up and start to spend 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or however long you need. But what Rudolf Steiner talks about too is that when we start doing that, we find that actually most other things in our lives we still have time for, even though that might be an excuse that we don't have time to do it. We usually find actually better time. We show up in our lives in a very different way because we start to operate, I think, more from the true self, as opposed to this just barrage of perceptions and identifications and behaviors and beliefs and other types of frequencies that we're inundated with, and all sorts of stuff that is not us. To me, this is the beauty of why we try to go inward. We try to slow everything down. It's like, think of everything in the outer world as just information. It's just tons of information. And for the vast majority of it, none of it's really you, right? So what we're trying to do is just quiet down all of that excess noise. So it gets to be less and less and less influential, and we get more and more, we can start to then hear the inner voice that we're actually trying to connect to. And from my own experience is that when we do that and we start to connect to it, once you've made a connection with it and you've had this felt sense of it, which is what we're all trying to find, because it's without that felt sense, it's still just information. And when we actually have that experience where, like Téa talked about when we were talking with Guy, and he had this heartfelt expansion, I think when we notice that, that's where things start to change. We know something's real about it. And now we start to want to listen to that voice that has had that experience more than all of the other outside noise.
And how do we know, or what is that? What is that connection? to the inner compass. So many of whom we've spoken with in the past as well have spoken of this connection to our higher self. So whether it be, the self with the capital S, or Dolores Cannon referred to it as the oversoul, or Godhead, or what are the other terminologies?
Yeah, God, source, true self.
True energetic self is what Guy Needler refers to it as. So it's that aspect of us that has greater sentience, that is actually closer to source, or all-knowing, all that is. And it's from that place where the smaller aspect of who we are at this moment has dipped into the physicality of this realm, this world, but we can always reestablish that connection to our own higher knowing to get greater clarity from. And maybe we'd love to hear from you guys, because you've been on this journey with us as well. What have been your experiences as far as even the quality or the essence of what it is that we're speaking with? I'll share some of the qualities that we've spoken of in the past. It's being identified as clarity, or wisdom, or not even or, but and compassion, unconditional love. So these are the qualities that we can tap into wholeheartedly and viscerally and tangibly when we're able to connect to our higher selves.
Mm-hmm. I also think the ones that come up a lot for myself is when I feel deeply in resonance with something, or when I feel that, to me, I often feel that really inspired feeling. That's even why I called this podcast the Inspire Health Podcast. It's the idea that when we become incredibly inspired, from my perspective, we are very much connecting to that inner self.
In spirit.
Yeah, in spiritus is where it comes from. And from that place, then do we translate that into our lives? Are we able to put it into action? I think this is a part of where we are right now. Knowing it and just feeling it is not enough. We have to be able to have that experience and then bring it into our world, because in doing that, now we are creating changes, very tangible changes in this reality. So one thing that we'll often look at is, what are the experiences that genuinely cause you to feel expansive? When do you feel inspired? When do you feel like everything is opening up? When do you feel totally effortlessly engaged in something? And at the end of it, you feel even better too. So it's like being aware of your own energy, being aware how that feels. To me, it's like when we start to connect to that sensation of the body, we are connecting into that inner self, that true self. And then I think even more importantly is, when do we get that experience of that expansion and that inspiration? And then what are we doing that causes us to constrict back again? Very quickly. Because if we're wanting to connect more, then we have to be aware of what we're doing and getting in the way of it. It's like how RJ will often talk about, it's like this water hose, and when the hose is open, it's this huge free flowing thing that we have access to, but most of the time we just kink our hose. So from that perspective, I would look, what do we do that kinks our own hose? Now, I would usually go through and look at, what are my go-tos that would be my excuses to not do something that I know maybe feels really good for me to do, when I'm connecting more into that heart self, that more that deeper sense of who I am. What are my excuses that come up? And we've all got them. And I think the key thing is to really sit with it for a little bit in the stillness and just ask yourself those questions, or sit with it and allow the knowing to come up. You can even track through your day and see, when do you get that expansion, then what comes up that kind of brings you back down again. It's like one of the things that Rudolf Steiner talked about in that book how to know higher worlds. He does an exercise, and Tay and I were talking about this a little while ago. He was talking about taking a seed, and this is really timely because we've been doing a ton of gardening this last while. And I tell you, when you actually engage in the earth, and in anytime you connect more with nature, and the whole concept of seeds and growing into these plants, or taking this little seed and it grows into actually this huge, massive tree, which here on the island, we'll see some of the largest trees in the world can be out here. It's amazing. But to think that it started from this tiny seed. And Rudolf Steiner does this exercise where he asks you to hold a seed and then really just look at it for what it is, sort of in its physicality. But then sort of through your imagination, see what the potential of it is, see what it's going to turn into. So you can actually see this, maybe this little seed is actually going to turn into this massive oak tree or something along those lines. And the idea of it,
or a really yummy gooseberry plant.
yeah, exactly.
Which
or
we've seen in our garden, which is so amazing.
Yeah, or a beautiful rose, or whatever it is. I mean, gardening, you see it in action. So,
and if you ever feel like you've lost the appreciation for the sacredness of life and beauty, start gardening, because it's really such a beautiful way of reminding us just the magic of
this nature,
this realm that we're in and what is possible.
And it doesn't mean you have to have a huge amount of space. I mean, there's a ton of stuff now on urban gardening and stuff like that too. But what he was getting at with it was, can you actually and have a felt sense of the knowing of the unseen potential that lies within this seed to become this other thing. And what he actually says is the more that you practice this, that you actually will then start to visually see the potential, almost as like an aura around the seed. You'll actually be able to see the unseen. But the first thing is to even contemplate that it's there and to have a visceral knowingness of what that potential is. And Tay and I were doing a walk the other day, and we were talking about that concept, and was just thinking, it's such a tricky thing being humans, where we're inundated with so many beliefs that ultimately are all limiting and keep us very small and in many ways. And I think we're so much like that seed. But it's like to look at it, and if you were a seed and you were only looking at a seed, to kind of think, oh, guess what? You're going to turn into that. And you see this massive oak tree or this beautiful flower, and all you are at the moment is a seed. To think that that potential exists within that seed to become something else completely different, it's almost incomprehensible. So I think to me, the message around that is that if we are only trying to figure it out through the outside world, we'll never be able to see what the true potential is for us. We have to go inward to find the source of that information, the truth of what we are, to be able to have a tangible experience with it.
One of my favorite quotes is from Cynthia Osali. And she says, for a seed to achieve its greatest expression, it must come completely undone. The shell cracks, its insides come out, and everything changes. To someone who doesn't understand growth, it would look like complete destruction. And it's kind of, this kind of speaks of the times that we're in, I feel like, where so many of us are coming undone from previous identifications or roles, or the doctor has resigned, the pilot has reevaluated the line of work that they were in, the teacher is no longer resonating with the curriculum that they're conveying to the students, so it's making them reevaluate their life purpose. The mother might no longer have that role, the child. I mean, I feel like on so many different levels, were that which we had held onto and identified with is kind of being swept from underneath our feet, and we're left to reevaluate who we are and what we are. And within the quarantine of the current times that we're going through, we're wondering who are we? What is our purpose? What is our role? And there's been so many females that I've spoken to, myself included, we're hitting early menopause, and even the physical body that we have carried for so long is almost foreign to us and uncomfortable. Its discomfort kind of rubs us in a particular way on a daily basis. So there's definitely a lot to reevaluate, and this could be a gift. This could be an opportunity of really churning in. And we spoke with Dr. Todd Ovokadis a few months ago about this, and he said, this is the time that we're in is kind of like the time where the caterpillar turns into absolute goo. Before it then transforms into a beautiful butterfly. And we've never done this. We've never had this apparently in humanity's history. We've never been to this time and place before. So none of us really know what's on the other side of it. There's been lots of channeled messages or masters tapping into a knowing of what's coming. And many have spoken to this place that we're going to as far as the age of the Aquarius being positive and light and beautiful. However, we're in this realm of free choice, and we're definitely at this precipice of we ultimately get to choose which direction we're moving into. And so this time of really stepping into and questioning who we are, what we are, and this necessity for quiet and turning inward and tuning into that inner compass within the assistance of nature around us, which can facilitate that inward turning, is really could be a huge blessing for all of us.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I resonate a lot with is that as we are going through these transitions, and I feel like in many ways we're pioneers, we're really sort of treading a new path for what things could be. And what I ultimately think is essential to create the best path forward is that we all bring our own uniqueness into the world. And the only way that we're really going to be able to do that is to go more inward, to actually connect with it wholeheartedly, rather than looking for the outside world to inform us around that. So it's not that you don't pay attention to anything in the outside world, but you want the compass to be inside, and you want to be able to then express that part of yourself. That's ultimately bringing you and your own uniqueness and your own true self into the world. And so this is why we're having these series. We think it's incredibly important that we actually take the time to nurture that connection and to then interact in the world from that place and bring more of our own uniqueness into the world. I feel like we all have, when we are connecting to that truth of who we are, then we get to bring our own gifts and our own uniqueness and this beauty into the world. And I just think it's going to be phenomenal what we could all create together when we are doing it from that place. So I guess kind of in closing on that, as far as practical things, again, it's make time for stillness, whatever that is for you, whether that's in nature, whether that's meditating, whether that is just being quiet, but make time.
Let that be a priority.
Yeah, I feel like right now that actually has to be one of the biggest, if not the most priority, because the thing is it seems like sometimes it's taking time away from what else is going on, but at the end of the day, that is the most important thing that you can do, is connect to that inner guidance. That's the place of the different set of information that then you become privy to. You'll get different senses of knowing. Your priorities change. Your life direction starts to shift. You get access to intuition and knowledge in a different way than just the intellect is able to provide. So I think that it helps you navigate your life in a more beneficial and positive way. So prioritize that. Make bits of time wherever you can to start to connect into that feeling of stillness, and then just be there, just be present with it. Also notice what you resonate strongly with. When you feel that big sense of inspiration and a natural enthusiasm for things, honor that and move forward with it. And then recognize when you constrict it and when the patterned excuses sneak back in, or the limiting belief patterns sneak back in to kind of pull you away from it. That's when we are moving closer to that true self, and then we pull back again. And so we need to pay attention to those things as well, I think, and then do the best we can to navigate forward from that place. One other thing that you guys could check out, I know previous guest on our show, Dr. Roland McCready, who works with Heart Math, they actually have a free training that they are doing. I'll put a link to that. I really like the Heart Math work. I think it's really beautiful stuff. And he's doing a free video event called Access Heart Intelligence to Transcend 3D Consciousness. We'll put a link to that so you guys can go and check that stuff out. That's why I mentioned on many different episodes the accessing your heart's wisdom meditation. If you're not familiar with this sensation of finding stillness or accessing a different place of information, those meditations, the heart math work, helps you access it. And what I've liked about it with patients is I can measure it and see when you're there. So it's reproducible. So that might be one way that resonates with you. So I would check that course out too, and see what Roland has to offer. He's a really amazing guy too, and has been on the show before.
And they're doing great work. They've had, since the beginning of this pandemic, they've had lots of programs, even for free programs for children as well as parents. So lots of ongoing support at that site. They're always doing great work.
Yeah, so we'll put the link down there for you guys to check that out. I think this is out on Wednesday, so we actually have the first course that we have put together. We've been so excited to put together is the Nature Care Solutions Reclaim Your Power to Heal. And that will start on the Sunday, May 14th. So I think you still have a few days to sign up for it if you haven't. If not, just check the Inspire Health podcast and click on courses, and you'll see the Nature Care Solutions course. It's going to be a phenomenal live course. I am going to share a ton of information with everybody on how you can really manage a myriad of health challenges yourself, build your natural confidence, turn on your sixth sense as a parent. This is all really important stuff to know how to do moving forward.
And to really step into the knowing of how to take care of yourself and your family. This is a really important part of trusting your own intuition, trusting your own inner guidance, and at the same time picking up a few skills so that you can know exactly what to do when the time comes where you have to step in and be the main caregiver that you are for your child and your family. So it's very valuable information, and we've done our best to really lower the price to make this affordable for everyone. It's an 8-week live mentoring course. It will only be offered this way at this price this time. So if you're interested, please check it out. And let us know what other courses you're interested in, because within the Inspire Life Multiversity platform that we have launched, we're going to be offering very useful, tangible courses that you can implement into the everyday to make it really relevant in how you're showing up in your life on a day-to-day basis. So it'll support you, and by you purchasing these courses, it'll support us as well. And we will be able to upgrade our one computer that we use to record these episodes and get a proper camera and a better mic to keep delivering useful information to you. So know that we offer you support, and you purchasing these courses definitely goes right back into us being able to continue to bring you awesome information.
And just quickly, one thing we were listening to just the other day with Jason Estes, because he sometimes has some really cool information out that he's talking about. And he was just, and this has come up with other guests too, and different people that we've talked about and heard about, but particularly right now, the ability to recognize what is not working for you and then being able to turn that around in super, super fast is all accessible right now. So,
and as far as when you recognize that you are lacking in something, whether it be a skill or a trade, if you're spending a little bit of time, devoting a little bit of time, even 5 minutes a day, but on a regular basis, then for you to actually pick up that skill or
and master it even to the
master
point.
it is very quick. So this is the gift of the times that we're in.
So things don't have to take years and years or even lifetimes. Like literally, if we can be very clear with, if we are working with maybe not feeling confident enough, we can turn that around very quickly by investing a little bit of time and energy into it. So whatever it is, and this is part of the reason why we're creating the courses, is to sort of help people move forward in that way. All right, everybody, much love to you all. Thank you so much for your support, and please share, like, subscribe. All of that helps us tremendously on being able to get this information out. So we will talk to you soon.